Imagine you one day find yourself in a game world with a system that makes others like you. The story begins with Yelena coming into the castle and seeing that the sages have been defeated by the Demon King of Desire. Suddenly, the Demon King of Desire comes in and tells her that they already got what they deserved for invading his castle. He then tells Yelena that he will spare her life if she is willing to be his servant. She tells him that she will surrender, but immediately warns him that if he takes her body, he cannot take her soul. Immediately, the Demon King of Desire absorbs Yelena's power, and the system brings a message that he has just won a character card. A boy who has been playing a video game becomes excited about his new achievement. Soon, the screen on the system goes blank, and the system tells him that they are going to reward him with a gift. Suddenly, the screen becomes a portal and immediately sucks the boy in. Soon, the boy finds himself in the character creation screen of love in the world game. He becomes confused and frightened as he suddenly sees an elf who begins to welcome him into the game world. The elf tells him that the characters in the game are alive as well as him. He then tells the elf to skip the story and tell him what to do. The elf tells the boy that he has to go and restart the plane and make all the ladies fall in love with him. He then reminds the elf of his progress in the game, but she tells him that it has been deleted. The elf proceeds to tell him that the wizard has specially selected some powers out of the power system, which can make him a strong man with infinite powers, the agility system, which can make him changeable and magical, the physics system, which can make him a tough man with strong arms, the mental system, which makes him proficient in spells, and the charm system that makes him handsome. The boy becomes very shocked as he tries to see if he can still be a demon image, like he has leveled up to be in the game, but the system keeps giving him the charm power. The elf tells the boy that he should be careful in using the system, and she announces to him that the game has started as she gives him a kiss on his forehead. The boy is being transported to Lingming World, Yanzhou City. There he is mistakenly transported to a women's bathing room, and immediately he is being chased by a bunch of soldiers. While hiding to get away from the soldiers, he checks his quest and sees that he must successfully attack the Wizard of Cloud Shadow, Yan Xuan. Qin Yuan checks the properties. He gets to know more about the world and his target. He also notices that the system has given him a new skill, the Evil Charming Smile. He learns more about the new skill, and he begins to complain about how stupid the skill is. Soon, a soldier finds him, and immediately Qin Yuan uses his skills, and the soldier immediately feels irritated, and the system tells him to try harder. Immediately, he tries his best, and he gives a smile at the soldier, who suddenly stops and begins to stare at him. The soldier begins to fall in love with Qin Yuan, and as the soldier moves closer to him, Qin hits him with a brick, and the system tells him that his wanted level has leveled up. Qin becomes very angry. Seeing this, the remaining soldiers yell as one of them tells the others that Qin should be killed. The soldiers begin to shoot arrows at Qin, and one of the arrows hit him on the shoulder. He begins to run, and he runs to a shop and meets the head of a brothel, and she tells him to go to the back door, seeing that he is handsome. She then calls on her girls to prepare themselves. The soldiers run into the shop and begin to search. Suddenly, the Orin of the Beihulaho comes out, and she tells the soldiers to search, and soon they come to her and tell her that they could not find Qin. Qin, who is hiding in Orin's dress, holds her leg, and she gasps and almost exposes him. Soon, the soldiers leave after searching, and Qin Yuan comes out of the Orin's dress, which makes her fall to the ground. The girls become surprised as they see that Qin has fainted. They begin to panic as they see that he has been bleeding, which has caused him to faint. The Oiran tears her cloth and uses it to tie Qin's wounded shoulder. She also yells at the other girls to go and prepare hot water and also a room for him. While in bed, the girls begin to look at him and fantasize. Soon the Oiran comes in, and she sends the girls away and tells them that she has brought him medicine. One of the girls begins to suggest that he is in a coma and he will not be able to take the drug. Another girl suggests that she feeds him using her mouth. All the girls begin to argue about whose tongue is better and who has been in the business for too long. Qin Yuan's points begin to increase, and the Oiran yells at the girls to go out so that she will take care of him. The girls murmur as they leave, and they say Oiran just wants to have him all by herself. As the girls leave, Oiran takes the medicine and pours it in her mouth. She then lifts Wen's head and gives him through her mouth. Qin turns Oiran over and begins to kiss her. She becomes very shocked, and he finds himself in another realm. The following morning, he wakes up and finds out that he has been dreaming. Oiran tells him that he took advantage of her while she was sleeping, and Qin notices that he has been slapped. He begins to ask why he got slapped, and the girl he met in the shop the night before comes to him and tells him that they saved his life. She then gives him options of either staying with them and being a handyman or being handed over to the government. Kim Yuan decides to stay and work in Bahulahao. The girls begin to hit on him. Later that day, Kim notices that he has gained more points as his charm is attracting more points for him. He decides to trade his points for something else. Kim sees the boundless magic option and he decides to get it, but he is surprised as it is worth 100,000 points. He gets a discount and he uses it to get the magic. He comes out of his room and the girls begin to look at him as usual. A customer begins to complain to him that every time he pays to see pretty girls, the girls always look at him. Warren comes out and apologizes to the customer, and the man tells her to drink his wine, and after he secretly adds a powder to it. Warren takes the wine, and as she turns to leave, the man asks her if he could spend the night with her, but she reminds him that she only sells her art and not her body. Warren goes to her bedroom, and suddenly she begins to feel very hot, and she begins to wonder why she is feeling like that. She takes off her clothes, and suddenly Kim barges into her room, and as he turns to leave, she holds him and tells him to wait. She tells him that he should do her a favor. She pulls him close and removes her underwear. Suddenly the customer, Go Gan, tries to go in to meet Orman, but as he enters the room he notices that he has entered the wrong room. He meets a huge woman and she tells him that she will not let him escape her palms. The other girls see that there is dust on the ceiling and they think it is just the rats. Soon, Kim Yuan becomes guilty of sleeping with Orman. She tells him not to be ashamed as she is a brothel woman and it is normal in their place. Suddenly, she yells at him to go as she throws a pillow at him. Kim goes to the balcony and begins to wonder how hurt he is. He says to himself that it does not feel like a game at all. Kim then sees the customer, Go Gan, running away from the brothel. The man begins to insult Kun and tells him that he will get back at him. Kim then begins to say to himself that it was the man that poisoned Oran and made him lie with her. He also tells himself that if it didn't happen like that, he would not be able to master the boundless magic very well. Back in his room, Kim begins to cultivate his boundless magic to the second level. He also learns a new skill of charming. Kim tries the new skill on a cat by snapping his fingers, and the cat begins to go all over his body. Kim admires the new skill and begins to wonder if the cat were to be human. Kim goes to the market to get something for Miss Fang. As he reaches the market, he sees where a man is selling brooches, and he moves near, and he listens to how the trader wants to sell the brooch to a lady at the rate of 800 taels. He checks the brooches and cuts one, and he tells the girls that the man is selling fake products. Suddenly, the man calls on two huge men and tells them to beat Kim Yuan up. But as the men approach Kim, the lady yells at them that she will not allow them to hurt him, and she will also not forgive the trader for trying to scam her. As she attempts to attack, Kim tells her to calm down. The men inform Kim that they are no ordinary thugs and that they graduated from a fighting academy. The lady advises Kim to be careful and leave the thugs alone as they might possess powers as they have said. She begins to think in her head, asking herself why her heart skips a beat any time she stares at his face. One of the thugs attempts to punch Kim, but he immediately uses his charm power and the man falls to the ground and begins to admire Kim. The other thugs ask the older thug why he is behaving like that. The two other thugs also try to attack him, and he uses charming power, and immediately the thugs begin to fall in love with one another. The lady then asks where Kim is from after seeing that he possesses great skills. Later, he asks what her name is, and she tells him it is Yun Xuhan, a disciple of Yun Men. Yun Xu tells Kim Yuan about a competition to select new disciples, and that he should try it if he is interested. Suddenly, Yun Xu's elder brother, Go Gan, comes out and immediately Kim tells him that it has been a while since he saw him at their Beihulahao. Yun Xu scolds her brother for visiting a place like that. Go Gan tries to defend himself in front of Yun Xu, but she does not listen. He threatens Kim again as he runs after Yun Xu. Later that night, Kim Yuan goes back to the brothel, and he goes to see Oren in her room. He hands her a brooch. She tells him it is the cheapest of her jewelry, but she loves it. She takes the brooch from him, and suddenly her napkin falls, and as Kim is about to pick the napkin up, she uses her feet to raise his head up and tells him not to bother about the napkin. Kim tells Miss Fang that he is expensive, and she tells him that as an Oiran she has gathered a lot of money, and he should only mention what he wants. Suddenly, Kim Yuan kisses Miss Fang, and he tells her that he wants to serve her well. She lays on the bed, and tells Qin Yuan that he should let her forget everything. Qin lies with her and the experience level for his boundless magic increases. The following morning, Qin Yuan wakes up, and he notices that he has woken up late. He quickly says that he is sorry to Miss Feng and he is surprised, as she is not in bed with him. He sees a letter on the table and reads it, and the system tells him that he has collected another character card of Feng Lingxing. He begins to tell himself that he does not think it would be as easy as that. Immediately, the girl he had met in the Beiyulahao comes in and tells him that Miss Feng has redeemed herself. She also asks him if he is still leaving, and he tells her that he is leaving as he still has a lot to do. She immediately calls on the girls and tells Qin Yuan that he cannot go easily. The girls begin to beg Qin Yuan not to go. Qin uses his charming finger magic to make the girls fall asleep and he leaves. Go Gan tells Yun Hixu that they have sent for her to come back to the sect in order to make preparations for the next set of disciples, and she tells him not to bother. Go Gan then accuses her of refusing to return to the sect. Suddenly, Qin shows up, and this makes Yun Hixu surprised. He tells her that he has been looking for her, and he wants her to take him to Yuninghong in order to learn art there. Yun Hixu tells Qin that they are just about to head to the Yuninghong, and they will take him. Go Gan becomes angry, and he wants to take Qin Yuan with him so that he can have his revenge on him. Qin insults Go Gan that he has a body odor, and as Go Gan tries to defend himself in front of his sister, she tells him not to bother. While riding on the horse, Yun Hexui tells Qin Yuan that he has to hold her very well so that he will not be nervous. God Gan becomes more furious as he thinks of killing Qin Yuan like that. He decides to use a crane needle to kill him. Go Gan uses the crane spirit needle and aims it at Qin Yuan, but it mistakenly hits Yun Hexui and Qin Yuan, and he begins to explain to her that it was a mistake. Yun Hexui and Qin Yuan fall off the horse and fall into a lake. Go Gan becomes very confused about what to do. He began to think of how to escape punishment. He decides to leave both of them and goes away flying on a sword. In the water, Yun Hexui is unable to breathe, and seeing this, Qin Yuan goes to breathe air into her mouth for respiration, and suddenly he sees her sword and begs it to take them out of the water. Qin holds the sword and carries Yun Hexui in his other hand, and immediately they fly out of the water. Qin Yuan lays Yun Hexui under a tree and tells her to rest when he suddenly hears growls, and as he turns he sees some 2 stars, blood-clawed wolves. He asks the system and exchanges his points for powers. He kills the wolves, and his points begin to increase. Sumi sees a giant 4-star giant bear. He begins to complain that his fighting abilities are low, and he calls on the monster to come and make new friends. After trying out his charm magic, Qin sees that magic does not work on the bear. He becomes very disappointed. He begins to think that it is because the bear's level is too high. The bear runs towards him and begins to lick his body. Qin becomes satisfied as the bear begins to help him defeat the blood-claw wolves. Qin sits with the bear in a cave and thanks the bear for giving them food and shelter. He also tells the bear that he has work to do as he will play with it later. Qin tells Yun Hexui that he has to help her suck the toxins into her body. He also tells her how dangerous the poison is to her body. He then sucks and spits the poison away. Yun Hexui becomes weak and sleeps off. She dreams that Qin is trying to take advantage of her. Qin wakes Yun Hexui up, bringing her fruit. She immediately attacks him with her sword as she asks what he is doing to her. Qin explains to Yun Hexui that he did not take advantage of her. He also tells her of how he has accidentally eaten the poison he sucked out of her arm. She begins to feel sorry for him. She also asks him why he was not injured, as the needle hit them both. Qin then explains how the maple leaf jade pendant given to him by a friend saved him. Yun Hexui thanks Qin for saving her life, and she tells him that she is too weak to heal him with her powers, but she can teach him so that he can use them to heal himself. She tells him that she will teach him the advanced 6 Suns snow-melting techniques. He thanks her as he is excited to learn the techniques from her. She also corrects him to start calling her senior sister Yun instead of Miss Yun. Go Gan goes in front of Yun Xinghan, Yun Zhongyan, and lies against Qin Yuan's intentions. He lies that Qin dragged Yun Hexui into the bone-chilling lake. Immediately, Yun Zhongyan calls all the soldiers to go to the lake and look for Yun Hexui, either dead or alive. Go Gan asks Yun Zhongyan if he can help in the search, but he dismisses him and tells him it is not his fault. Go Xiang comes out and asks if Go Gan is going out, and he hands him medicine to make him stronger. He thanks his father, and he promises to bring Yun Hexui back. Go Xiang and Yu Zhongyan have a discussion about Go Gan and Yun Hexui. They discuss how to get them married, and Yu Zhong tells Go Xiang to be careful with the medicines he is making, as self-cultivation is good. Qin goes fishing for the bear and Yanxu. He begins to lament how hard fishing it is, and how they would laugh at him if he did not come back with fishes. Suddenly, the fishes begin to jump out of the lake, and Qin is surprised that even the fishes are attracted by his charm. Qin immediately sees some monks in the air and notices that they must be there to find Yanxu. Immediately, he runs back to the cave. Yanxu hears footsteps and thinks it is Qin Yuan, but instead it is Go Gan. She begins to scold him for hitting her with a hidden weapon, and she also tells him that she will report to the head. Go Gan tells her that it was a mistake, but she cannot be alive. She tells him not to mess around with her, and he begins to tell her how he has loved her for years, and she is moving around with a stranger she has just met. Go Gan also adds that if he does not get Yanxu, nobody else can get her. He also swallows the pill his father gave him and tells her that she is no match for him. Yanxu sees that Go Gan has become very strong. She becomes afraid as she is weak. As Go Gan is about to attack Yanxu, he is suddenly hit in the face by a fish. Go Gan turns and sees Qin Yuan. Yanxu immediately warns him that Go Gan is there to kill them. Qin Yuan sees that if he defeats Go Gan, it would help him earn 500 system points. He goes to meet Yanxu to borrow her sword, and he uses it to fight Go Gan. Go Gan hits Qin Yuan and he falls to the ground. Immediately, Go Gan carries him up and threatens to kill him, but Qin tells him that he has been tricked, and he suddenly uses his charming magic on Go Gan. After being caught with the charm magic, Qin Yuan seizes the opportunity and uses Yanxu's sword to cut Go Gan's arm. Go Gan begins to cry and tells Qin that he is going to call his father, but he is stopped by the bear. The system brings the option to complete the quest of defeating Go Gan, and Qin Yuan accepts the reward. Back in Yuninghong, Yanxu explains all that has happened, and Qin tells him of his intentions to join them. Yanxu takes Qin Yuan around the sect and takes him to a place in order to teach him the Six Suns techniques. The techniques make Qin Yuan faint, and Yanxu begins to panic about what to do. Later, she saves him and starts to blush when he wakes up to realize that he has broken through the 4th level. He thanks Yanxu for helping him. The person begins to attack Qin Yuan and Yanxu. Yanxu then asks the person why he is launching attacks on them, as the person might be a disciple of the sect. And as Qin Yuan hits the person, he finds out that the person is a female, and he tells Yanxu to let the person leave as she escapes. Qin helps Yanxu to heaten up the cold on her body, and they both discuss how to find the girl in black who had just attacked them. Qin tells Yanxu that he has left a scar on the girl's chest. Meanwhile, Go Gan meets the girl and offers her medicine to erase her scar, and tells her to work with him, and she agrees. A few days later, at the competition, Qin meets Mo Ninchuang, Yanxu's sister, and before the competition starts, some girls begin to admire Qin, while some men also plan to eliminate him from the competition. Soon the competition begins as they are asked to get grass from Union Park at given time. Yanxu asks Qin why he did not hurry, but he tells her not to worry. In the woods, Qin uses his charming smile to make 2 fairy sisters help him find the grass. While in the lake bathing, Qin is tied up by a slave family member who cannot resist him. Immediately, he uses his infuriated power to set himself free, and she begins to beg for her life. He lies with her to increase his boundless magic points. Soon, the fairy sisters are captured by a tree demon guarding the Union grass, and Qin Yuan comes to their rescue. The ladies yell at Qin to be very careful with the tree demon, and suddenly one of the broken branches of the tree demon injures Qin on his face. This makes the ladies become furious, and they all attack the demon tree and kill it. Qin finds some of the Union grass and tries to go further to search for it until he is attacked by a group of men. Suddenly, Qin Yuan beats the men up, and they all hand him 4 more Union grass to the 6 he had before. Qin Yuan goes back, and he is congratulated as he has become one of the disciples. The girls begin to hail him and ask him if he wants to stay in the female dormitory. Yanxu becomes jealous as Qin is becoming popular. Later that night, Qin takes a walk with Yanxu, and she informs him of the bath all the females will have with each other, and she will be able to see the scar on the girl's body. In his room that night, Qin Yuan begins to think about Yanxu's feelings, and suddenly the system elf comes to him and tells him that he can disguise as a female in order to catch the person they are looking for. Immediately, Qin turns into a female like an elf and goes to the lake. He sees Yanxu and tells her that he is the one. She becomes surprised, and he tells her what his intentions are. Soon Young-su's sister Mo comes in and chats with them a little bit and goes. Kin asks Young-su if she had checked Mo's chest, but she tells him no. Kin tells Young-su that he has a plan. Immediately, Kin raises a false alarm that there is a water snake in the spring, and he rushes to Mo and checks her chest, but he sees that her chest is smooth. While in the spring with Mo, Kin Yuan's transformation begins to disappear and his true identity starts to show. Mo sees that it is Kin, and she immediately shouts at the others to go as she is trying to tackle the water snake. When everyone has left, Mo asks Stin what the problem is, and he asks to get dressed before he explains to her. In a meeting set up by Mo, Kin explains why they did something like that, but Mo tells them to be careful. Later, Mo goes to meet Goxiang and tells him how they have suspected her. He then tells her not to worry. The following day, the master, Yunzhong, tells Qin that he has to look for someone that would practice the double-double cultivation with him. He asks Young-su if she will help, but she refuses. Qin holds interviews for females in order to practice the double-double cultivation. The other females begin to get excited as they see this. The senior sister goes in with Qin and his charm points increase. Young-su becomes jealous as she asks why he is acting that way. Soon, Qin tries all the sisters, and soon Young-su comes to him and asks him what he has done to her sisters, and he tells her that it was a plan to make her come to him, as she is the only person that can help him out. He tries out the test with her and she passes. He then tells her that she should start teaching him cultivation, but she tells him that she is tired. Meanwhile, Mo goes to tell Goxiang that Qin and Young-su have started double cultivation, and if they are not fast with their plan, it will fail. Goxiang gives Mo a poison to give to Qin and Young-su. He tells her that it would stop their cultivation process. While in the cultivation process, Young-su notices that Qin's appearance has changed, and he teases her and asks her if she still likes him like that. And soon they hear a knock on the door coming from Mo, and Young-su quickly tells Qin to put on his clothes. Young-su goes to open the door, and Mo comes in with a bowl of chicken soup. She tells them that they should take it before it is cold. Qin tells Mo that they cannot take the soup because it might be poisoned. He also explains to Young-su that it was Mo that attacked them. Young-su tells him that it cannot be Mo because they have been sisters for a long time. Immediately, he tells Mo to take the soup first, and Mo thinks she can just go to Goxiang for the remedy. Once she takes it, and Young-su also takes the soup. The two girls suddenly begin to get hot. Meanwhile, Go-gan uses the spirit needle to kill his father. He insults his father as a heartless man. The two sisters begin to go to meet Qin as they both remove their clothes. Qin lies with Mo and Young-su. Mo begins to confess to Young-su as Qin lays down on the bed tired. He tells Mo, who begins to thank him for saving her, that she should thank Young-su first. Mo continues as she tells Young-su that she has been jealous of her. That is why she attacked them. The system gives Qin a gift of the confused mirage, and he also sees that he has reached level 4 and his points are increasing. Mo then goes to meet Qin and tells him to punish her for what she has done. Immediately, Young-su becomes furious and tells them to separate. Mo tells them about Goxiang's medicine and how he wants to use it to destroy them. Qin tells Mo and Young-su that they should rest while he goes to take care of the matter. Young-su gives Qin the Exu sword and tells him how to put it to good use. Mo begins to wonder if Young-su is planning on marrying Qin Yuan. Suddenly, Go-gan attacks him in the room, and Qin asks him how he is complete again, and he explains that his father's life has been used as an atonement for him. Qin begins to fight with Go-gan, and he finds out that Go-gan's body is immortal, and he cannot get injured. All the girls, led by Mo, come out of their dormitory and decide to help Qin. He tells them to go back, but they do not answer him. They'd all use their powers together, and this makes Go-gan surprised. The girls use their sword formation to attack Go-gan, and they become excited as their plan works, but they are interrupted by Go-gan, who begins to laugh at them. He tells them that no matter the formation they use, they will not be able to use it against his immortal body. Suddenly, Go-gan attacks Mo and holds her by her neck. He tells her to bow to him and he will make her an elder, but she tells him that she would rather die than to be at his side. As Go-gan is about to kill Mo, Qin Yuan rescues her and passes her to Young-su, and he tells Go-gan that the reason why the girls like him is because he is more attractive than Go-gan is. The system tells Qin that his main quest is to defeat Go-gan. Qin uses the Exu sword to pierce through Go-gan's chest, and Go-gan becomes surprised as he is not healing quickly. Suddenly, the fire of the sword makes Go-Gan to become an undead monster. After thinking of what to do, Kin uses his mirage to confuse Go-Gan. Go-Gan begins to get confused as he begins to see scenes of Kin and Yunexui. Kin sees that the mirage is already messing with his mind. Go-Gan falls to the ground and begins to scream as he is being disturbed by the mirage. Yunexui asks Stin what memories of them he showed him, and soon she begins to hit Kin. A few days later, they lock Go-Gan, who has refused to heal his eyes. The master of Yunying Hong comes back from the retreat and sees the situation on the ground. He then tells Kin that he is going to give him the head so that he will take care of Yunexui and the other girls. But Kin Yuan politely rejects the offer and tells the head that he has other things to do. Kin tells the head that he should make Yunexu the head, and the head commends him that he is a good man and he will not force him to stay. Later that night, Yunexu begins to think about whether she should go and say goodbye, and she begins to hear Kin and Mo talking, and she immediately opens the door. Kin makes a toast to the two sisters, and after drinking his wine, he notices that his body becomes hot, and soon Mo reveals that she has put acacia powder in his drink. She convinces Yunexu that they have to lie with him so that he will not forget them. The system tells Kin that he has unlocked 2 character cards. The following day, Yunexui and Mo wake up and see that Kin is gone. Mo consoles Yunexu. Meanwhile, Kin watches them on screen with the elf. She asks him if he feels guilty or sorry for them, and he tells her no. He argues with the elf and threatens her by squeezing her head. She then tells him more benefits that the system has and what they can do. He uses the home system and sees that there are 2 levels, the alchemy level and the blacksmith level. The elf briefs Kin Yuan on the usefulness of the workforce and gives him gifts that the system has for Kin. He also asks if he can start the task anytime, and she tells him that he can start anytime he wants. Kin wants his character cards to be in the same place, and he uses his character cards, and suddenly, the 3 characters, Yunexu, Miss Feng, and Mo appear. Yunexu immediately asks Stin what a naked woman was doing with them, and Kin sits the 3 women together and offers them tea. Kin accuses the elf for not telling him earlier. He goes ahead to lie to the girls that he is a fairy. He also tells the elf to play along, as he tells the girls that the elf is his immortal servant. The girls believe him, as Mo says he is telling the truth, as if he is not a fairy. He would not possess such power. The elf brings out 3 rings and offers Yunexu one if she wants to visit Kin Yuan any time, and she tells the elf that she will be too busy. Mo collects the ring and asks if it can transport her to Kin Yuan's room directly, and this makes Yunexui very angry. Kin Yuan goes to look for Feng and sees her by the river. He tells her how much he has been longing to be with her again. He then asks her where she went after she left the Bahulao. She tells him how she met a person that has taught her to master musical instruments. He teases Feng and she blushes and insults him for teasing her. The next day, Kin tells the elf that he is ready for his next target, and he begs the elf to teleport him to a good place, as he does not want to be treated like a pervert. The elf tells him that she does not have the power to control his landings. Immediately, the elf teleports into the Gaia world, and Kin meets himself in a prison with some demi-humans. The demi-humans tell Win the story of how humans fought with demons, and how they all ended up in prison. They all introduce themselves as Ali, Wingtail, Kao, and Shou Ruan. They tell Tin that their homes were invaded by humans. They tell Tin that he is in the prison because there are not many male succubuses, and the charming ones like him are bought and used as slave toys by rich and noble women. Kin begins to think that it would be okay for him, but they tell him that he can also be bought by a man, and this makes Kin scared. He asks them if the laws are not in order, but they tell him that the laws are only a decoy. Kin rises up and tells the girls that he will take them out of the prison together, and they ask him if he has a way to rescue them. Immediately, Shou Ruan began to use her teeth to bite the iron cage. Meanwhile, the auction has started and they sell a cat girl, and as she refuses to be sold, they blow her up. They put up Kin Yuan for sale next, and immediately, all the ladies begin to salivate and say that he must be their own. Seeing this, Kin Yuan makes a demand that whoever wants to buy him must buy the other remaining slaves with him. The person in charge insults him that he is a mere slave, and he cannot make any demands, but Kin tells the man that he is also a mere servant, and he should let the main bosses decide what to do. The people begin to auction prices, and a man stands up and says he wants to buy him for 150 million. But a woman raises her hand and says she will buy them all at the rate of 500 million, as she does not like to waste too much time shopping. Everyone at the auction becomes surprised at the amount the lady wants to buy the slave. Kim and the other slaves are sold to the lady. At Miss Kerr's house, a maid comes to tell Kim Yuan to shower and pick clothes to wear. He asks the maid the kind of person Miss Kerr is, and the maid is charmed and tells Kim that she is very good, as he will find out. Kim picks an outfit and waits for Miss Kerr. She comes in and they talk, and she immediately jumps on him. He asks her if they could talk about life and ideas, but she chains him, and she reveals herself to him as being a demon too. She tells him to capture the heart of the owner of the 7 Sages of Light, and he refuses her. Kin uses his King Kong's power to set himself free, and Kerr threatens Kin, and he begins to kiss her, and soon the other slaves begin to hear voices and wonder what is going on. The next day, Kin learns that Kerr has trapped him in order to resurrect the Demon King. She hands him the mission, and he tells her that she should take care of his friends while he is on the mission. Days later, while the 7 Sages of Light are training, they hear a voice from the woods, and as they move nearer, they see Kin, who is trapped. Some goblins try to attack Kin, and immediately Arena, the Holy Knight, comes to rescue him. They both exchange pleasantries. She then uses her hammer to detect some demons, and she tells Kin that she is the head of the Holy Light, and she will not spare any demons. She tells him of the story of their encounter with demons years back. Kin and Arena go through the cave, and Arena feels that it is hot, and she takes her clothes off, and Kin begins to admire her body. He wants to use his charming evil smile, but she does not look at him. Kin becomes angry as she is hot-blooded. She tells him that she has been doing well, and suddenly she falls into a pit. Kin yells at her to be careful as the slime is acidic, and it begins to eat up her clothes. Kin immediately pulls Arena out, and as she tries to use her powers to heal herself, but it does not work. Kin then tells her that he can only use his spit to cleanse her. She tells him that they just met. Kin helps her and uses his tongue to lick all parts of her body. He gains more magic powers and unlocks a new skill. After that, he gives her clothes to put on and threatens to kill himself after, but she immediately stops him. She tells him that they should go and rescue the people they want to. They reach the lair, and Kin sees the missing villagers, but the old lady sees Kin and she admires him. Arena tells the evil queen to release the villagers, and the queen tells her that she will let the villagers go if Arena will trade Kin for the villagers. The queen makes Arena fall into an underground labyrinth, and she takes Kin into her room. The queen explains to Kin why she needs a male with a strong gene to reproduce goblins. She also adds that if he cooperates with her, she will let him and the other villagers go safely. Kin unties himself and lies with the evil queen, and his myriad charm points begin to increase. Arena hears the voice of the evil queen, and she thinks Kim Yuan has been eaten. She thinks of a way to get out of the labyrinth, as the demonic energy in there is too strong, and her evil detection is useless. She immediately uses her hammer to break the walls of the labyrinth. Qin Yuan satisfies the monster on her wish to give birth to another monster like her, and tells her that she has to keep what they had between them, and not let anyone find out about it. Suddenly, Lord Iron breaks the wall with her hammer, and finds them in an awkward position, but she finds Yuan praying and preaching to her. Lord Iron asks him what is going on, and he tells her that he explained the holy light to her, and she wants to change her ways. He also begs Iron to give her a chance to change, but Iron reminds him of all the villagers she has kidnapped, but the monster informs her that she has released them all, and they should be in the village. Arena believes him and decides to pardon her. Qin Yuan thanks Arena for believing in him and begins to leave, and the monster tells him that she has a lot of monster sisters that need to be shown the light, but he tells her that when he is done resting he will surely attend to them, and Arena becomes totally lost. Back at the Creekwood village, Guyan shows Arena around and tells her that it is where he serves as a priest. Arena notices some chick and touches them, but Yuan immediately warns her that it is forbidden to touch chickens in the village, as something terrible is going to happen, and tells her about a similar story he had when he first came to Creekwood village. Some members of the village suddenly notice him coming and begin to thank him for saving them and protecting their daughter and children. Yuan tells them not to thank him, but instead to thank Arenas, since she was behind saving the villagers. The villagers then go to thank her and acknowledge the fact that she is beautiful, but Yuan tells them that they are just friends. Later that night, they both retire to his room, and he tells her that there are no hotels in the village, so she will. He's sleeping with him, but she finds it weird as she has not slept with a man before. Arena feels a presence in the room coming from one of the demons that came in to see Yuan while they were sleeping, but refuses to turn because it will look weird. Suddenly, a drop of saliva from the mouth of the demon touches her face, which has a burning effect on her skin, and makes her jump up, warning him that there is a demon in the room as her skin has been baptized. Yuan denies about any demon being in the room and tells her that the room is so small. Aetna then notices his red skin and asks him if he was okay, and he tells her that he is fine. 10 minutes later, Yuan tells her that the demons dare not approach her, but she tells him that she can feel that a demon is nearby. Suddenly a sound is heard from under the blanket of Yuan, and they both become surprised. Irina rushes to open the blanket and sees him without clothes, and also finds out that there are no demons hiding there. Irina goes back to bed and begins to have a very strange dream about the priest, and wakes the following morning to find out that it was a dream and Yuan had left the room. Suddenly, Yuan comes in to tell her that food is ready, and she tells him that she will be out and begins to deliberate about the dream and how she saw Yuan as the Pope. Suddenly, a knight comes into the village and asks them if they have been met by a woman named Irina. The little chick poops on the shoe of the knight, which makes him get angry and step on the chick and kill it. The villagers become very angry on how the Knight of the Holy Light Church has killed their favorite chalk auntie, and tells him to apologize to the dead chick, or they will not forgive him even after he decides to pay for it. Chris refuses to apologize to the villagers, and they begin to throw poop at him and eggs, which makes him fall back into a pit filled with poo and waste. Chris begins to wonder how there can be shit there, and tells the villagers that he cannot spare them, since they stained the sword of the Church of Holy Light. Suddenly, Irina calls him and asks him what he is doing in the village. Chris tells her about how he misses her, and how he cannot stop thinking about her. She also asks him why he is in the shithole, as he is unbearably smelling. Yuan explains to her that if Chris does not apologize to the people for killing Aggie, they will not stop throwing stinking items at him. Chris suddenly lowers his pride and apologizes to the villagers, and also promises to give them 109 pieces of gold. An hour later, Chris goes to clean up and tells Irina that since her mission in the village is complete, they should return back to the Church of Holy Light. Yuan then thanks Irina for coming and begins to say his final goodbye, but she begs Yuan to come with them as she plans on inviting him to join the Church of Holy Light. Yuan, who has always wanted it, begins to pretend that he has no qualifications for joining the church. Chris also reminds her that just not anyone can join the church, and the people of the village begin to speak for him, and Athena plans to be his guarantor, and Yuan agrees on following them. Irina begins to daydream about Yuan having to defile her body, and Yuan asks her if she is okay, and suddenly brings her back to her senses, and tells him that he just seemed to have fallen asleep accidentally and had a nightmare. Yuan tells her that she is amazed to have fallen asleep, but they are almost at their destination. They arrive at the destination after leaving Chris behind, because his smell has killed the horse at which he was to come with, and she begins to show him around. Yuan asks if he has to go and do the test, and she tells him that she has to go to the church first and seek instructions. Yuan decides to look for a hotel while he waits for her to get things sorted, but she informs him that he can come to her house and play, and if he is too tired, he can go and rest. 10 minutes later, they arrive at the house, and Yuan becomes amazed at how big of a house she is staying in, and she tells him that it is the legacy in which her parents left her with. She tells him how her parents were killed by demons and how she was saved by a member of the Holy Light when she was young, and that was what pushed her to join the Holy Light Church. Yuan plans on supporting her, but tells himself that if she finds out that he is a demon, he will be dead. The housekeeper comes out to welcome her, and she introduces him to her housekeeper, and the housekeeper thanks God that his mistress now has a boyfriend, but she dies saying they are friends. She orders him to prepare a room for him, and he walks in noticing the beautiful maids that are in the house, and immediately he notices them and wonders what they are doing there, and they ask him to follow them into the room. Yuan tells them to stop pretending and tell him why they are there, and they tell him that they have been sent by Lord Kazal to assist him on his mission. Yuan agrees and tells them to stay. They become happy and Yuan goes to take a bath. Suddenly, the two demon girls quickly put on a towel and tell him that they are coming in. Yuan asks them what they are doing, and they inform him that they wish to repay him, so they decide to have a fun time with him. Ruin begins to grow, and Yuan wonders why. The other demon girl explains to him that she is from the slime family, and it is totally normal to act that way. Drags Yuan to herself, making him feel comfortable, as he is being rubbed and squeezed all over his body. Begins to feel so happy as she is able to wrap her master's body, and suddenly explodes. Yuan becomes surprised and sees that she has multiplied into 3 in his bath, but the demon girl tells him that the slime family can be split and recognized. Yuan smiles and agrees to try it since they are all connected. Back at the chambers of Irina, The housekeeper tells her that she likes Master Yuan, but she did it again. He tells her that if she likes him, then he should then go for it and tell her about his wife, but Arena stands up and walks out of the room, ordering him to leave. Back at Yuan's room, Xiao Ruan completely becomes exhausted, and he successfully unlocked the characters of their levels. Suddenly, Arena approaches and tells him that she has something she wants to talk to him about. Arena comes into the room and asks him why there are 3 foxes and slans in his room, but he comes up with a very believable excuse to sway her attention. She tells him that she has come to give him a special training for the test, and she tells him about the test and about how the test is being created by illusions. She also tells him about all the church will look out for, and Yuan tells her that he will definitely pass the tests given to him. She tells him that she is not sure he will be able to fight away lust, and he asks her how he will be able to get special training for that kind of test. Arena suddenly undresses and Yuan asks what she is doing. She tells him that if he can avoid her temptation, then he can pass the test. Yuan pauses for a while and asks her if he cannot resist her temptation. Arena tells him that if he does not resist her temptation, then her holy body is not holy anymore, and she will be disappointed at him. Yuan then asks her that even if she says so, how will the training be carried out? Arena stands up from the bed and asks him to watch her body. She puts on a tempting costume, but Yuan tells her that as long as his heart remains pure, nothing can tempt him. She continues to move around him and touch him, but Yuan fights so hard not to show any emotion. After an hour, Arena puts on her clothes and tells him that she is not sure that he will be able to resist the temptation, and tells him that she will see him tomorrow during the test. Immediately she leaves. Yuan tells the 2 demons to help him relieve his energy, as he could not hold it any longer. The next day, Arena notices his face and thinks he did not sleep throughout the night because of how nervous he is for the test. They suddenly approach the test ground and they meet with Franca, who is among the 7 mages of Holy Light, and she asks him for his name. Yuan mentions his name to her and tells her and notices that Chris is also present in the venue. She warns him to reconsider taking the test, and Yuan refuses and tells them that he cannot let Arena down as he would not want to spoil his lifelong dream. Arena tells him about Franca and how ruthless she is. Yuan tells Franca that he is ready, and Franca asks him to look into her eyes so she can look into his heart. Franca goes into his mind and notices that his heart is so strange. Yuan tells her that if he wants to go into his heart, she has to sit, and she accepts his invitation. Yuan offers her alcohol, but she refuses to take it as it is not what she has been trained to do, but in order to get to know him, she succumbs to it. An hour later, Franca becomes drunk and continues to ask for more drinks, and Yuan notices that she is drunk, but she denies that she is not, but Yuan drags her close and asks her if she is lonely too. Yuan tries to get into her head by telling her how lonely she is even if she is blind, and how many times people have said negative things against her. Yuan snaps his fingers and brings her to a room, and tells her that he wants to take her to enjoy the fun beyond the Holy Light. Franca tells him that the Holy Light will not allow her to do it, and Yuan reminds her that she is not in the real world, and no one will know. He takes the staff and hits her and gets his way to her. She breaks out from his heart and asks him who he is and why he did it. Yuan tells her that he is just a priest who believes in the Holy Light, and threatens her that he will let everyone know what she did or she hides it, and let him join the Church of Holy Light. Franca suddenly notices that she can see and she is no longer blind, and Yuan tells her that she has been blind to find her true purpose, and if she faces her desires honestly, her eyesight will be fully restored. They both leave the room, and Arena asks how the test was, and Franca announces that he passed the test. Arena becomes happy that he passed the test, and Chris wonders how he is able to pass the test, and suddenly becomes surprised. Arena also notices that Franca has gotten her eyesight back and asks her how. Franca becomes shut because she could not tell them what happened, but Yuan cooks up a very believable lie that made Arena believe because she is a true believer of the Holy Light. Yuan also wishes to have more exchanges with Franca and begins to leave with Arena, but Chris feels he is bad and plans not to make him complacent. Chris goes to Franca and asks her if she has made some shady deals with Yuan, but she warns him not to interfere as it is not his business. Arena and Yuan begin to have a nice time around the city, and she begins to show him her favorite places and brings him to her favorite clothing store. The woman sees her and thinks it's her boyfriend, but she denies him, saying they are not dating. She begins to try out a new cloth and tells him that the zipper cannot close, and Yuan uses all his energy to pull up the zipper since it is not closing, and it tears open, exposing her chest. Arena gets angry and slaps him and immediately apologizes for it, and leaves him to enjoy the rest of the day. Yuan retires to his apartment and goes to meet with Ms. Franca, and after his meeting, she tells him about Chris being hostile towards him, and it looks like Chris is targeting him. Yuan tells her that he will be okay and nothing will happen to him. On his way home, some mercenaries stop him and tell him that they have been sent to take his head off his neck. Yuan smiles and summons a monster, but surprisingly, Yan Xuan comes and Yuan tells her that he has been chased by the mercenaries and he needs her help to take them down. One of the mercenaries launches a fireball on him, but Sivan uses her blade to divide the flame into two. One of the mages shows up from behind Yuan and stabs him, but he disappears and appears behind him and gives him a very deadly blow to his face, and the mage falls flat to the ground. Xuan also kills all the mercenaries and Yuan plans on sending her back. She tells him that she is not someone that comes and goes and will stay one night with her. He agrees and they both go to get a hotel. In the room, Xuan notices some things that are strange, and he tells her to calm down as he will want to teach her various customs. They begin to go at it, and suddenly, a burst of earthquake begins to shake the entire hotel. The next day at the Cathedral of the Holy Light, Yuan, Irina, and Chris are waiting to see the Archbishop, and Yuan suddenly yawns, and this makes Irina ask him if he did not sleep at all during the night. But Yuan lies, saying that he was studying knowledge, that is why he was up throughout the night. Chris suddenly challenges him, saying he looks disrespectful to see the Archbishop, but Yuan insults him, stating he is smelling, and this provokes Chris confronts him, stating that he is certain that he is a demon, but Yuan tells him that he will not relate with people as low as him any longer. Suddenly the bishop arrives and greets Yuan and regards him as the newcomer. The bishop goes ahead to give each and every one of them assignments to carry out for the church and tells Yuan to go to a nightclub and prevent the sale that will welcome demons into the holy city. The bishop also asks Irina if she is sure that Yuan can handle it, and he does not want anything to obstruct the good name of the Holy Light Church. Yuan assures the bishop that he can do it, and he will not want to disappoint Irina. This makes Irina to consider him so as not to fail the task and hands him a very big pile of money, but Yuan rejects it and tells her that he has his own plan. Later that night, Yuan follows through with his plan and finds a way to capture the rich man Wang Stone. He tells the driver not to open his carriage as the lady he carried is still resting. Yuan disguises himself as Mr. Wang Stone and goes to a hotel and requests for his usual service. Two girls go up to meet him and think they will just get his money, but Yuan tells them that they will not get the money that easily. After he is done with the girls, he calls for the receptionist and asks her to come to his room. She opens the door and finds him naked with the two girls that have passed out on the bed, and she becomes surprised. The girl tells Yuan that the purpose of their store is to meet all the needs of the new guests, and she beckons on Yuan to follow her. She takes him to a prison and shows him some sisters, and she also tells him that they are very pure and rare sisters, and he should pick the one he wants to enjoy. Yuan tells her that he would buy the three sisters at once, and as he gives her a check, he tells her that she can write as much as she wants. The girl becomes surprised as she notices how rich Yuan is. She immediately asks him if he would just buy her as well, but he tells her next time. Yuan then tells the girl to go and prepare new clothes for the three sisters, and she tells him that she would release them, and he can talk to them while she is preparing the clothes. As the girl leaves, Yuan tells the sisters not to fear as he is also one of them. Yuan then removes his mask for the sisters to be able to believe that he is actually a male succubus, and he gets more charm points. He wants the sisters not to expose his secret, and suddenly the girl comes back, and she sees Yuan in his original form. Then she asks him who he is, but he quickly manipulates her into thinking she is his dog. He then tells the sisters to act naturally as they follow him, and when they get into the midst of the crowd, they begin to hail Yuan as a wealthy man that has the money to buy three sisters at a time. When they get outside, they see the real Mr. Wangstone, and he immediately alerts the others that Yuan is an imposter. Yuan begins to run with the girls and he sees Irina, and he yells at her that she should help him. Irina uses her holy light barrier to hold down the men chasing Yuan. A few minutes later, Irina asks Yuan what he intends on doing to the demons, and he tells her that he wants to let them go, and he has a teleport stone that he can use to help them to go to a place they would not have any contact with humans. The three sisters suddenly meet themselves in a strange place, and Sun Mo calls out on Miss Fang and tells her to come and see Yuan's new exploits, but Miss Fang gets angry and promises to deal with Yuan. The sisters see a lady that tells them that she would teach them how to survive. Mo ties up one of the sisters and asks who is next to be trained, but the other two sisters reject the offer, and she tells them that they would not be able to satisfy Yuan if they did not go through with the training. She suddenly calls on Miss Feng and tells her that she should come and give the sisters some training as she would not be able to do so later, but Miss Feng rejects the offer politely as she thinks Mo is just being jealous. Meanwhile, Yuan sits and begins to wonder who is thinking about him and also how his charm is a kind of distress. Franca comes in and gives him information that the daughter of a wealthy man has been kidnapped, and as he is about to go and rescue the person, Franca pushes him back to his seat with her leg. The believers outside the church begin to hail Franca as they hear her voice, thinking she was casting out demons for them. Yuan then tells her that her followers really believe in her, but she tells him that her faith in light has never waned because he brought her to a deeper understanding. She then gives him information about the Razor Gang and tells him to get them by his own means. Yuan finds his way to the Razor Gang hideout, and as he hides in a bush, he sees two guards and he remembers the information Franca had given him, and he decides on what to do, and he immediately transforms into a woman. He goes to meet them and tells them that their boss had sent for him, and the guards know their boss as someone who invites girls over. They ask him what his mission is, and he tells them that he is just a weak lady. The guards let him in, and as he enters, he begins to admire the interiors of the building, and he wonders how gangsters get to live such a luxurious lifestyle. Suddenly, he sees two huge guards guarding the door where the two girls are, and he immediately tricks them by asking them if they want to have fun with him. The two guards immediately fall for his trick, and they move closer to him, but as they move closer, he immediately knocks them out and transforms back to his real self. Yuan enters the room and sees the two ladies tied up in a room. He tells them not to be afraid as he would save them. As Yuan saves one of the girl tells him to save the other girl as she is the eldest miss, and immediately Yuan hurries to save her, and she immediately yells at the girl that she had inherited her father's wealth and she is the eldest lady. The eldest lady begins to think of how she would scold Yuan, but as he moves closer to her, her heartbeat begins to get fast, and she could not scold him anymore, and instead she tells him that she forgives him as he was not aware before. Yuan grabs the eldest miss, and he uses his power-ups to make her beautiful, and the younger lady becomes so surprised as she has become so beautiful. Suddenly the head of the Razor Gang comes in, and he asks why Yuan has come to his territory to take his hostage away, and Yuan tells him that he has to fight with him one-on-one. The leader of the gang then tells Yuan that he would not let him go as he has stepped into his territory. Immediately, he tells Mai Sai, one of his female workers, to kill Yuan for him. Mai Sai tells Yuan that she would play with him before killing him, and immediately Yuan takes her into an illusion, and he ties her to the roof. He then takes her whip, and he begins to beat her, but first she tells him that she would not beg for his mercy, and after a few minutes, she becomes weak and the boundless magic for Yuan increases. Yuan transforms into Mai Sai, and he goes to meet the leader of the gangster in his office. He tells him that he wants him to play with him, and he tells the leader of the gangsters that he should close his eyes, and as he does that, he immediately strangles him with Mai Sai's whip. The leader of the gangsters dies, and Yuan calls on Mai Sai to get explosives and plant it around the building, and after she does that, he transforms into the leader of the gangsters, and he takes the hostages and Mai Sai out, and he tells the gangsters that he has to take them to a private place, and as they leave, the explosives in the building goes off, and the whole building get burned. Yuan's charm points increase as the girls are impressed by his skills. Yuan takes the eldest miss home, and he finds out that her father is Wang Stone. Wang Stone and his daughter hug for a long time, and he begins to lament on how he has searched for her. Yuan asks if he recognizes his daughter, and he tells him that he does, and he shows him the birthmark they both have. Wang Stone tells Yuan that he looks familiar, but Yuan tells him that there are two people that look like each other in the world, and he believes it. The daughter tells her father how Yuan saved her and how amazing he was. Then Wang Stone also tells Yuan that he would celebrate his daughter's safe return, and he invites him to attend as he wants to give him a gift for rescuing his daughter. In Chris' house, his servant tells him that the paper for that day has arrived. Then she shows him the paper, and as he reads, he sees Yuan on the front page, and he gets furious seeing his picture. He immediately goes to his basement, and he begins to beat the demons that he has, and he tells them that they are nothing but his slaves. Yuan enters his room and he sees Tail and Ka. He becomes shocked as he sees them, but they tells him that they have come to give him a magic mirror sent to him by their boss Kazir, and immediately he asks where the magic mirror is kept, and Tail tells him that she hurriedly kept it in the toilet bowl when she came back. Yoon goes to the toilet and begins to talk to Kazir as she tells him that a guerrilla squad was attacked by the Sword of the Holy Light, and a few demons are taken hostage by Chris. She explains to him how she entered Chris' house to confirm. Yoon then tells her to be careful, and as they were talking, a man barges into the toilet, and this makes Yoon interrupt the communication. Yoon attends the banquet Wang Stone had invited him for, and Arena tells him that he does not have to be worried as she is by his side. Chris becomes jealous as he sees the way all the girls in the party are going after Yoon, and he swears to take everything that belongs to him back. Kaiser meets Yoon in a silent place that he has chosen to maintain a low profile because of his high level of charm. She tells him that danger is approaching him as Chris has gotten evidence of him being present at the auction. She also informs him that she has found a way to help him, but he has to fight against the army as well. Kaiser tells Yoon of how Chris has built a device to recognize a demon's breath, and she tells him that his disguise would be easily discovered. He asks her if she has a solution for the problem, and she tells him to enter one of the toilets so that she can help him to absorb his demon aura temporarily. Unknown to them, Chris comes to the toilet to wash his hands and he suddenly begins to hear a lady's voice. Chris yells at the door of the toilet as he tells whoever is there to come out, and Yoon comes out and tells him that he really plans well. Chris tells Yoon that he is going to expose his new face, but Yoon tells him that he should be careful with people as he is not scared of the shadows. Kaiser sits in the toilet and thinks that it is up to Yoon not to let her down. In the party, Mr. Wangstone calls the attention of everyone, and he thanks them for coming to the dinner party, and he also thanks Yoon for bringing his daughter home safely. As he is about to continue, Chris interrupts him and tells everyone that Yoon is a demon that has used the church as a charade. He tells everyone that he has a video of the way he was sold as a slave in the slave trade fair. Chris puts up the video, but the people begin to see another video on the screen. Yoon tells Chris that he does not deserve to be a member of the Holy Light. A priest of the Holy Light tells them that they should settle the dispute by using their powers. Soon they begin to fight and Yoon begins to use all of the powers he possesses, and Chris tells him that he would not be so merciful again. Yoon is surprised as he notices something in Chris more, and Chris tells him that he has entered the realm of the gods. Chris attacks Yoon and Yoon sees that he cannot dodge his attack. Then he results in using his slime magic, but as he slices himself open, he could not achieve the slime. Chris makes fun of Yoon for not being able to dodge his attack. Soon Yoon uses his Ice Frost sword, and this makes Chris wonder what kind of trick it is. They continue to fight with swords and Yoon notices how strong Chris' swordsmanship is. Yoon accuses Chris of taking advantage of the fact that any other weapon does not work against the Holy Light weapon. Chris tells Yoon that all his attacks cannot defeat him, and suddenly, Chris hits Yoon and he falls to the ground. The crowd begins to feel pity for Yoon as his charm is working on them. Chris becomes frustrated, and soon his armor breaks, and he dashes at Yoon to continue the fight, but he is stopped by an arrow shot by a lady. Lucia tells Chris that he is not worthy to be part of the Holy Light members. The Holy Light sword chooses Yoon, and Chris becomes disappointed. After the fight, the winner has been identified as Yoon, and he goes to meet Lucia to thank her, but instead she invites him to her sister's house. But Orena tells her that she should not bother Yoon, but she immediately yells at her sister, asking what kind of relationship she has with Yoon, but they tell her they are just friends. They go to Arena's house and they begin to celebrate Yoon's victory against Chris, and they also rejoice for the way Yoon is chosen by the Sword of the Holy Light. The butler in Arena's house tells himself that he has to make the best drink for Arena and her friend, and as he walks past her parents' pictures, the butler promises them that he would take care of their little one. Yoon warns Arena as she is taking a lot of alcohol, but she tells him that she is not. Arena becomes drunk and she tells Yoon to help her in the bathroom. She takes a shower and calls for help, and as he goes to check, she pulls him in and kisses him. Yoon and Arena discuss for a while about how her body is not supposed to be defiled, but she tells him that since he is now connected to the Sword of the Holy Light, their union would not defile her body, and Sumi tries the power of the Holy Light on her. In Chris' mansion, the authorities lock his door and tell him that he has been deprived of his privileges as a member of the Holy Light. As Chris walks down the road in disappointment, some demons go after Chris after being sent away by the authorities in the Holy Light, as they tell him that he has to pay for all what he has done for the race, and they begin to chase him as he begs for his life. In Arena's house, Riser comes to commend Yoon for a job well done, and Yoon asks her if she can now lift the chain of chastity, as he does not like to feel like his life is held by others. Riser tells him that she wishes she can lift it, but it is a pity that she cannot lift it. Yuan asks the demon to get rid of what and asks her if she wants him and uses the chain of chastity blood on her, and tells her that she will serve him like a slave and tells her to kneel down. Kazur kneels down and he puts the chain around her neck and tells her that some people are enjoying themselves. The bishop also appears to one of the members of the Holy Light Church and orders him to come with him. The archbishop takes him to see that demon king's heart, and he tells him a brief history on how the church was able to get the heart of the demon king. The boy then tells the archbishop that it's the power of uncleanliness and the power of the demons. The archbishop gets angry and tells him that so far it is used for the right path, then it is the power of justice. He then plans how he will use the sword to cut off the head of Qin Yuan in person. He grips the sword and immediately begins to shout, and the archbishop becomes happy as the power of the sword will be used to bring out the light of the church. Irina wakes up and notices how bad Yuan looks and asks him what is wrong with him, but he says it's just insomnia. Suddenly, someone comes to tell them that the demon lord has surfaced and everyone should hide and run away from him. The demon then sprinkles his power on the people and turns them into demons, but Yuan uses his sword to stop them. Irina comes in and asks if that is Chris, and Yuan affirms it, and Chris tells them that Yuan's time of death is upon him, and Chris launches an attack on him. But Carter comes to use her shield to block his attack, and all the other mages in the Holy Light Church have all come to fight against Chris. Chris tells the mages that if they fight alongside them, then they will disappear with them, but the mage shoots a light arrow on him and tells him that he will be the one to disappear. The other mages team up and successfully take down the demons that came with Chris. Chris comes down to battle with the demons himself and tells them that they are not good enough to stand by him. The mages acknowledge the fact that he has gotten stronger, and one of the mages try to shoot him with an arrow, but Chris catches it and crushes it, which makes the mages so surprised that the arrow of light has been crushed by a demon. Chris opens the demon world to suck up the powers of the mages, but instead, it strengthens Yuan powers and he attacks Chris, but he blocks his attack. Chris then uses his powers to bring down Carter, but she stands up and informs Irina that she cannot die. Irina calls out to Qin Yuan and tells him that he is the only one that can resist in the barrier as they are useless. Chris tries to attack Yuan, but Yuan tells him that it's his strength he received. If you like this recap, you'll let me know in the comments, and obviously leave your likes too. Do not forget to share with your friends and subscribe. Above all, activate your notification bell so you don't miss the next recap when it drops. Until next time, do take care and stay safe.